All right, pleased to be joined by Mitch. You know him on Twitter as Reds in 4. Great to have Mitch on after a thrilling, riveting radio-only 3-3 tie on Thursday in Cactus League play. Mitch, my friend, how you doing?
Hey, Nick, doing pretty good. Appreciate you having me on only after the most, exciting, thrilling games. It's those ties that really bring the ratings in.
Well, it was a comeback tie. So, I mean, come back from some of the top prospects they got involved in it. So, I guess it's a little more than you feel really gross if you're the Diamondbacks if you backed into a tie, right?
Yeah, we'll go with that. No, I appreciate your ability to spin positivity out of anything. It's respectable.
Anything and everything. Well, we're gonna kind of keep this conversation. We've talked a lot the last few days about the offense, kind of focused a lot on that, and I really wanted to kind of get the pitching side. And there's no one better to talk pitching than Mitch, who follows every single angle and new pitch development and everything there is to know. So excited to talk some things about pitching. Let's start with Graham Ashcraft. He pitched on Thursday. A really interesting candidate, especially with the news with Abbott and Louder both starting slow. Sounds like it's probably unlikely that Louder is ready for opening day, if the Reds would even want to put him there. So Ashcraft, I think at this point, is probably a pretty serious starting pitching candidate. I think we all want to move him into the bullpen. Where do you kind of stand on Graham Ashcraft? First off, is there any chance that he could still become a starter? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there is, and the way that they pitched him today leads me to believe that they're putting their money behind their words about wanting to stretch him out as a starter. So we heard a lot about his rumored curveball being his kind of the new experiment that he was going to come back with this spring. Based on his movement plot, I don't think we saw that today. He gets a lot of variance on his slider, and he had a couple of them that dipped a little more vertically, but they looked like sliders he's thrown in the past. What he did change today, though, was his arm angle, and that is something that I know that they've talked about it in the past. I think last year they did know that his arm it dropped a little bit compared to where it was, and it seems like he's back in that old arm slot, or it's back up more where he wants to be. And I think overall that's going to improve his arsenal. It's going to work better with his cutter. It's going to work better with his slider. And funny enough, his changeup graded well today for the first time in as long as I've followed Graham Ashcraft. So that was a positive development.
That's good to see. It'll be kind of fascinating to see where he ends up. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that everyone is healthy and he does. How effective do you think he could be as a reliever?
Yeah, I think it's something that all of us want to find out deep down. Like ever since from the moment he debuted throwing 100-mile-per-hour cutters, it was like, is this our Emmanuel Class A? Like, what are we working with here? I think it's kind of twofold. Like getting his old arm slot back, I think is going to help him be more of a swing and miss guy, which is something that he's been missing a lot in the past. Just attacking more from a vertical angle, it's going to improve his slider. The cut on his fastball is going to be more effective. So in my opinion, all roads, even if like this is improving his arsenal, they're all kind of leading towards him being this dominant lockdown reliever. So that the way I kind of phrased it on Twitter was it's becoming a more of a matter of when, not if. But as it stands right now, the 3 to 4 pitch mix arsenal, like they could make it work as a starter for a little while, but I really do. I think it's just a matter of time till he's a lockdown reliever, or at least a good reliever to start.
Let's. I want to ask you about a guy who pitched another start of the pitch today. Chase Petty. He's been a guy that I've been probably higher on than anyone. That follows the Reds. I've been a big fan of Chase Petty. Still just incredibly young for kind of where he's at. I think you said you wrote something about how he's reclassified one of his pitches in his pitch mix.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on behind the scenes with his pitch movement plot. I think he's throwing 2 fastballs, which is good. He is getting a little bit more ride on one of them that's being graded as a 4-seamer, and then he's got a sinker that we've all kind of been aware of him throwing as well. As it stands right now, they're saying he's throwing 2 different sliders, one more of like a gyro bullet slider and one sweeper. The sweeper's grading better than the slider as it stands right now. The slider kind of looks like a cutter, but that's just it kind of is what it is. I mean, all in all, he sprinkled a changeup in there too. The grades aren't incredible, like they're not super flashy, but that's not really been his MO the past couple of years. Like Petty was brought into the org as like this high schooler who's going to throw 100 plus. Next thing we knew, he's kind of throwing 95 and quote unquote learning how to pitch. It seems like that's still the initiative with him, and it based on the way things went at the end of last season, I think that's going to be the route they go because it's working well. They're seeing good results. So to your point, I mean, the guy's 21 years old. He has 5 positive pitches. We've seen him throw harder than he's throwing right now. So I think this is just a matter of like building up the framework before, you build up the muscle after that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other starting pitchers, kind of stand out to you kind of from stuff we've seen in camp, or just kind of any thoughts going into the season?
Yeah, Brady Singer. So they went out and acquired Brady Singer as a stuffist, like someone who would rather our starting pitchers kind of have that Hunter Greene fastball to build on as their foundation. I wasn't a huge fan of the Brady Singer trade at first glance, but he showed up in his first spring outing and debuted a new pitch, a cutter, that's going to help him kind of mitigate left-handed batters a lot better and bring in more kind of weak contact, because it's something that he survived with in Kansas City that a lot of folks were worried about translating into Great American. But if he's going to take his four-seam fastball never graded that well. So if he's going to take that, reduce the usage of that four-seamer, turn it into a cutter, I think that's a different pitcher, and I think that's a better pitcher. So the comparison that I threw out was Mike Leake. And I remember 10 years ago, every time Mike Leake went on the mound, I was scared and I thought he was going to give up 10 runs. And sure enough, he'd walk out, 5 innings, 1 run, few, bloopers here and there. I think Brady Singer is going to do like a stretched out in terms of, he's a much taller guy than Mike Leake, but I think he's going to be like our tall Mike Leake this year is what it's looking like.
He feels like a guy you want on your rotation if you want to be a playoff team, but you don't want your playoff rotation.
Yeah. He could throw game 4. We got like a nice 2-1 lead or something. That'd be fine.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the, and you obviously knock on wood. I'm just excited about the innings that he can give you, just because there's so many questions with so many guys, and you already have Abbott and Louder already having some questions, early this spring. Singer's, again, knock on wood, has had some really good durability, and that's something that the Reds really kind of, I think, desperately needed. So I think you can trade a little bit of the stuff for a guy that can, frankly, just take the ball, because the difference between, it's great to have guys with high upside, but if they're only pitching, 15 starts and you have to fill the other 15 starts with a guy that doesn't belong, well, you can lose a lot of those wins that you were trying to bring in with the upside. So
yeah, he threw more innings last year than any other pitcher on the Red staff has thrown in a season in their career. So that's hard to put a value on. I know the whole like availability is the best ability, but seriously, like, we don't want to be throwing guys the SP10 in the staff. So it'll be nice having him around.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Mitch. I want you to predict the Reds rotation to start the year. So we start off with the San Francisco Giants for 3 days. There is an off day, obviously, like normal, between opening day and game 2, and then the Rangers, all at Great American Ballpark. Who starts the first 5 games? What's the order?
I think, and this is something I've actually been thinking about a lot. I think Hunter Greene's your opening day starter. I think he's being paid like it. He carries himself like it. It's something that he's deserved. Probably deserved it last year. I get why they didn't go that route. It's more like, earn it, then you get it. So you go Hunter Greene opening day. I think after that, you probably throw Lodolo. So long as like the command is fine. I think yesterday was just a blip on the radar, not a bomb. Like, I think he'll be fine. And again, like, there were times last year, I mean, everybody used to talk about him as, the undeniable ace of the staff. Why can't Hunter Greene be more like Nick Lodolo? And now all of a sudden everybody's out of Nick Lodolo. So I think he's their comfortable number 2. From there, you probably throw Singer. I think you could go either way with Singer or Martinez. I think those are going to be your 4 starting pitchers. What I'm interested in, though, is, and we're going to get into this a little bit more later, with all these non-roster bullpen guys, with them having potentially a couple 40-man spots open, do you go 4-man rotation because you have those off days to bring a couple guys with you along on your bullpen? So if they do that, like let's say Abbott and Louder aren't ready, maybe you option Ashcraft, you let him work on his stuff in AAA. You've already done it once. Seems like he took it all right. He's not going to take it as an insult. I think that might be the route I would go because it lets you hang on to a few more of those arms.
Yeah, I was trying to see which team would have the biggest advantage to use a lefty, and honestly, like a lefty's good against the Giants or the Rangers lineup because they both have several key lefties. I don't really think there's one big advantage over the other. Maybe the Giants a little bit more just because they're like they're really I think top heavy with it. So maybe that's why you'd want to throw Lodolo in that series. And that'll be kind of something interesting.
Yeah, well, and it's funny hearing interviews with those guys. Like, I think that's such a tight group; they don't really care who throws second or fourth. So that'll be nice. I think they'll we'll all kind of forget about the debate a month from now. But we need stuff to talk about. It's February.
Yeah, Green's the only one I think that will be pretty much for sure starting opening day, and then really what they do after that, it's a good guess. I could see Nick Martinez starting the second game. Obviously he's earned it. With the way he pitched last year, but there's a lot of different routes you could go. It'll be fascinating to see. Kind of surprised that Green hasn't been officially named opening day starter yet, right? Isn't that kind of strange?
Yeah, I don't know. It could just be a Tito thing. I don't know if he.
Yeah, I don't know. I have it.
Yeah.
I have to go back through the archives. When did he announce Shane Bieber was starting opening day for him?
Let's get the analytics on this. Come on, Nick. What kind of shop are you running?
Was it pre-March 5th? If it wasn't, oh no, we got trouble in the clubhouse. Let's talk about the bullpen. We also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay. Let's talk about the bullpen because this is really a fascinating group. It's I don't know. I don't know where you're at. I feel, Mitch, like if this Reds bullpen is above average in 2025, I wouldn't be shocked. If this bullpen is a little below average, I don't think I'd be shocked. I don't think it's going to be elite. I don't think it's going to be terrible. I think it's going to fall somewhere in between.
I'm about in the same boat as you are. I think they brought in enough like bona fide major leaguers to make sure the bottom doesn't fall out. And they've got a few wild cards, got them on hand to bring the ceiling up a little bit if everything goes right. But to your point, and this is something I've been harping about like all offseason, I still think they need that, that fire-breathing dragon, that lockdown guy, like right at the top. That's been Diaz at times. The command is so iffy that you hesitate to kind of put that kind of certainty with them. But I do think, to your point, it's an average to above average group. And we can get into this a little bit more. There's some trends with what they've done at the bullpen this year that I find interesting. A lot of the guys they targeted seem to be lower velocity, soft contact inducing guys. So it's an interesting avenue. It's burned them in the past a couple times. It's gone really well a few times. So yeah, it's an interesting group. There's a lot of ways it can go.
So let's talk about the guy that's on a major league deal that they just brought in Scott Barlow. I saw, I don't know if you put this public or not, but you put it in a group chat. You had a little comp for him.
Yeah, well, so first of all, Scott Barlow, I loved Scott Barlow in like 2021, 2020. He was the lockdown reliever for the Royals, threw hard, struck out a ton of people. That's not the Scott Barlow we're getting right now, and that's fine. I think he's kind of Tito's Buck Farmer. He's got a Buck Farmer with a curveball instead of a changeup. The fastballs aren't overwhelming anymore. He throws two of them. He throws a four-seamer and a sinker. They're not overwhelming pitches, but he has two really nice breaking pitches, a slider and a curveball that I think he can use effectively. And most important of all, he's going to be available and he's going to eat up innings. And I think that's exactly what they brought him in for at the price tag that they did.
He's like right at the Buck Farmer price tag of last year, isn't he?
He is. It, hurts my heart a little seeing him treat Buck like that, but it is what it is.
Can you believe Buck got a minor league deal?
There's something going. He had to have wanted to go back to Atlanta or something because I don't know. He could.
Well,
He
maybe
could
there's a handshake guarantee where you're going to be on the big league roster. That's wild to me.
It could be some funny 40-man stuff. You never know.
He's the guy that I feel like really got screwed, just in terms of like, I could go down a rabbit hole here, but like in terms of like players that really performed well, like did their job, he like hasn't earned that much career earnings. But there's a lot of other guys that have earned a lot more. And it feels like he was a guy that just, like he was for the good of the team and always had a rubber arm. And that honestly has probably hurt him in the long run.
Yeah, the amount of outings that he had to wear for the better of the staff, like, and what that did to his ERA, and he still had reasonable numbers at the end of the year. I'm with you. We can have our Buck Farmer Vengeance podcast at a later date, but I can give you a good 45 minutes on that.
All right. Well, there's some other really interesting names. Let's start with. I want to frame these conversations a couple different ways. Let's start off with your dream guy for the last spot. If you could pick, and you're throwing away all the service time, all that, just the guy that you think is the best pitcher
of the ones listed.
Yeah.
Okay. my pause is telling enough.
Well, I'll read it for the podcast listeners. We have the bullpen locks. We have Diaz, Rogers, Pagan, Mole, Santillan, Suter, and Barlow. All the other guys that are non-roster invitees or are Reds minor leaguers at the top of the food chain are the additional options. So of those that aren't the locks, who would be the one guy?
Yeah, I mean, so the go-to answer is Zach Maxwell. I think, I mentioned it before, like, I go by stuff. I'm a stuffist. I think your final guy that comes in at the ninth should be your most overpowering reliever. And that seems to be the way most teams gear their bullpens as well. Same sort of deal with Alexis Diaz. I don't know if I fully trust his command yet. There's something to be said about AAA and having the automatic balls and strikes system. Hitters being a little more patient at that level because they have the ABS to fall back on. Mm-hmm. I think that can explain his elevated walk rate a little bit. I just part of me, I think it's just the scars of Lucas Sims' past. Is I just don't want to get too attached to these guys who are posting BB9s and the 5s and 6s. But I mean that's probably the guy. Like his 4-seam fastball is something else. It's got a little bit of cut. It has a ton of ride. It's high velocity. It's and when you see Zach Maxwell too, it's just that's the overpowering presence you want out there. So yeah, I don't know when that's going to happen. He's not on the 40-man as it stands today. I don't know what it's going to take to get him on it, but once he gets up here, he's going to be a fan favorite, man, because he's something else. He throws gas.
Yeah, I think him not being on the 40-man is really going to work against him. He would have to, I think, absolutely dominate over the next couple of weeks and look. I think he would have to force his way on. But I do agree. I do think he has the highest upside. Let's frame it now a different way. Who is a safer pick, but you still think has a lot of upside that would be really good in that spot? Let's throw away Graham Ashcraft. Yep. I don't know if you were going to go there.
Well, no, yeah, Graham Ashcraft is Graham the reliever. I think is a good option in that scenario because he can give you length if you absolutely need him to. If he shows that he's dominant in one-inning spurts, all of a sudden, at a minimum, you've got your eighth-inning guy right in front of Alexis Diaz, if not taking Diaz's spot faster than you might think. So I think, and another thing with Ashcraft, he struggled a little bit with his command today, but his walk rates are never bad for a guy that throws as hard as he does. And sometimes I think he looks a little bit more wild than he is. He, like the underlying numbers themselves, I just think he'd translate really well into a reliever. So to your point, I think that's your high floor with ceiling option of the guys listed over there.
All right, I want another one because I meant to say we're gonna we're gonna throw away Ashcraft because he's gonna be a starter just for the
Oh,
sake
I
of it.
got you.
Who's the
Yeah,
other? Who's the other guy that would fit in that mold?
yeah. You give me safe, but you want upside,
Yeah.
and that's just asking me to talk about Ian Jabot
Yep.
because I, I again, what maybe it's just 2023 being still such a magical time for everybody, but he's got that fastball. He's got good breaking pitches. It's not overwhelming. Like I don't think he's ever going to be the closer for the Reds, but I think he can, top out at like a seventh or eighth inning option. And he looks good. The velocity's back to where it was in 2023. He's a name we all know. Some people trust. I trust. Some people don't quite trust yet. But I just think having that familiarity in the pen, and still having that upside, still having the stuff, that's probably your guy right there.
All right, and the last one, the real wild card here, the guy that you love, but you think, man, he's probably has no chance of really actually getting on the roster, or a lot of high chance. Who's the real wild card here?
So Josh Stillmont showed up when they signed Josh Stillmont. I kind of thought it was like a little bit of kind of a sad, like, oh, let's let this guy hang around a little. He had a nice career, and then he showed up pumping 98 again. So I think he might be above like a long shot. I think they had a plan bringing him in. They saw him pitch. They signed him. I'd be surprised if there weren't other suitors. So he's a guy that if he is going to show up throwing 98, I mean, he could work his way pretty far up onto that bullpen locks list. So, I mean, if you want to call him a long shot, he's probably that guy for me. The other guys like Zulueta, his stuff, there have been kind of some regradings by the stuff models, the public ones at least. He's grading a lot better in those than he was last year. So I've come around to the idea of Zulueta a little bit more. I think he needs some more command. Then looking at 40-man guys, Connor Phillips, I think you would be doing him a disservice throwing him in the pros right away. He looked fine. I just think he needs some time out of the spotlight. Lyon Richardson, I like that he's being a full-time reliever now. And then the last guy is Luis May, who, if I'm going to have concerns with Zach Maxwell's command, Luis May is kind of a non-starter right now. I'd rather see him prove it before trying to push him onto the roster.
I think there's a good chance Jabot and Stallmont find their way onto the roster. I'm going to assume that someone probably gets hurt. I know that we've had some concerns with Sam Mole and some of his velocity and stuff. So I think there's a good chance both of those guys do somehow find a way to crack this opening day bullpen.
I agree.
All right. Well, very good stuff here, Mitch. Any final thoughts for us?
Oh man, well, you got me going on the pitching side. I just, I think there's a lot of guys we didn't talk about that we haven't even seen yet this spring that are why we're so optimistic about kind of the state of this team. The first, Chase Burns. The moment we get Statcast data on Chase Burns, I think like my Twitter account's going to fire off 10 or 15 tweets all at the same time. I'm super excited to see what he has. I don't think there's been a pitcher selected second overall who's been talked about less than Chase Burns has. It blows my mind. It's like he's, it's like the Reds don't have the best pitcher in college baseball coming up through the system right now. And then Abbott and Lowder not throwing yet. I think they've kind of slipped our minds a little bit. Both quality arms. Excited to see what a full healthy season of Lowder looks like. Fingers crossed he's fine. He's just ramping up there. But yeah, the pitching is in just such a good state. The floor is so high with this rotation right now. It's nice to see.
All right, well, very good. Still waiting to see when we'll see the debut of Chase Burns. Reds have announced their pitchers through Saturday, and he has not yet showed up on the list. So, waiting to see when we'll get to see Mr. Burns. But please put it on a TV game. Come on, throw us a bone.
Statcast too, please.
Yes, Statcast and TV. Like we deserve it. We deserve it. Well, Mitch, I'll definitely bug you and try to bring you on again. This was a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more conversations as spring training rolls along. We get a little more clarity about where the Reds are going to go with some of these final spots on the roster.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate you having me as always, Nick. And, like I said, that 45-minute Buck Farmer episode, just let me know.
Will do.
Bye.